Have you ever looked at something broken, something forgotten, and wondered if it could live again? Today, we're turning trash into treasure, upcycling roots and drums into stunning ideas for tiny yards and small gardens. Welcome to Simply DIY, a space where creativity meets everyday life. Remember, these images are only inspiration. If you love what you see, take the idea, shape it with your own hands, and bring it to life using whatever you have right now. And before we dive in, let me say this: your presence here matters. Every like, every comment, every subscribe keeps a dream alive. Behind this channel is not just content, but a real family, and your support means the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in us. In a quiet little backyard, sometimes the most unexpected beauty is born from what others might see as waste. Imagine an old tree root, once hidden deep in the earth, now lifted into the light and given a second life as a coffee table. The twisted curves of its branches form a natural base, while the top surface, polished smooth, holds a teapot and 2 cups waiting to be shared. This is the magic of DIY upcycling, transforming what seems useless into something that feels alive again. A root table doesn't just serve as furniture, it becomes a storyteller. Every knot, every grain of the wood carries years of rain, sun, and soil. When placed in a small garden patio, it blends effortlessly with the flowers, the grass, and the soft glow of morning light. If you want to try this yourself, start simple. Clean the root thoroughly, let it dry under the sun, and sand the top until it feels smooth under your hands. A touch of varnish will protect it and reveal the beautiful wood patterns inside. Pair it with stump stools or potted flowers, and suddenly, your tiny yard has a soul, rustic, natural, and deeply calming. It doesn't take perfection to make something meaningful. Sometimes, all it takes is patience, imagination, and the courage to see beauty where others see trash. In every small garden, there's always a corner waiting to be transformed into something magical. Imagine sitting on a stool not bought from a store, but made from the stump of an old tree. Its rings tell stories of years gone by, of rains endured and summers past. Now, instead of fading into the soil, it finds a new purpose, becoming a humble seat in your backyard. Creating your own stump stools is simpler than you might think. Once the tree has been cut, keep the trunk sections solid and steady. Clean them well, and sand the surface until it feels smooth beneath your hands. You can leave the bark on the sides for that rustic charm, or peel it away to reveal the raw beauty of the wood grain. A coat of varnish or wood oil will not only protect it from weather but also bring out the natural patterns that look like artwork from nature itself. Place them around a small table, or even in a circle beneath the shade of a tree. Pair them with flowering borders or fresh herbs growing nearby. Suddenly, what was once forgotten wood turns into a gathering place, where tea is poured, laughter is shared, and the garden feels more alive. The beauty of DIY lies in this, giving new life to what might otherwise be discarded. With a little care, even a simple tree stump can become a source of comfort, character, and quiet joy in your everyday space. Sometimes, the most surprising comfort can be found in the most unexpected places. Picture an old steel drum, once used to store oil or water, now cut open, painted with cheerful colors, and transformed into a chair that welcomes you into the garden. What was once plain and industrial becomes a seat full of warmth, inviting you to rest under the shade of a tree or beside a small patio table. Making a drum barrel chair is not as difficult as it seems. With the right tools, the drum can be safely cut in half, smoothed at the edges, and coated with bright paint to protect it from rust. Add a soft cushion or a simple wooden plank as a base, and you have a piece of furniture that is both durable and unique. The charm lies in its bold presence. Each chair can be painted in a different color, turning a tiny garden into a lively corner full of character. Beyond its practical use, this kind of DIY project teaches us to see with new eyes. Instead of discarding what looks like trash, we can create something useful, even beautiful. Place a few of these chairs around a table, surround them with flowering borders or pots of fresh herbs, and your backyard becomes a place where stories are told, meals are shared, and laughter lingers. In the end, it's not just about building a chair. It's about building a space where life feels richer, softer, and more connected to the things we make with our own hands. There is a certain poetry in roots. Once hidden beneath the soil, they carried life quietly, unseen, and now they rise again to frame the very garden they once nourished. A root-based garden border is more than decoration. It is nature's own architecture, sculpted by time, reshaped by human hands. To create it, choose roots with interesting curves and textures. Clean them gently, let the sun dry them, and arrange them along the edges of your flower beds or vegetable patches. Their natural twists hold the soil in place while allowing plants to grow freely, giving the garden an organic rhythm that no factory-made edging can match. The beauty lies in its imperfection. Every knot and bend tells a story of rain, wind, and survival. Imagine walking along a small path where daisies spill over one side and ripe tomatoes glow on the other, their growth gently contained by roots that still look alive. Even in the smallest of yards, this simple act transforms the space. The garden becomes more than a place of plants. It becomes a living canvas, bordered by the echoes of old trees, now part of your everyday sanctuary. This is what DIY is truly about. Not just saving money, but giving meaning to materials that others may overlook. With patience and imagination, roots can rise again, not in silence underground, but in beauty, framing the garden where life continues to bloom. Every garden, no matter how small, deserves a touch of abundance. And sometimes, abundance begins with something as simple as an old drum. What once stored oil, water, or forgotten things in the corner of a shed can now stand proudly in your yard, overflowing with life. Painted in bright colors or left rustic and raw, these upcycled drums become planters large enough to hold vegetables, herbs, or a cascade of flowers. The process is beautifully straightforward. Clean the drum well, cut it if needed, and drill a few holes at the bottom to let water drain. With soil inside, it transforms into fertile ground. Tomatoes climb skyward, peppers glow in the sun, lettuce spreads in thick green clusters. Or imagine a drum bursting with petunias, roses, or lavender, the colors and fragrance spilling into the air, softening even the smallest patio. What makes drum planters so special is their scale. In tiny gardens where space feels limited, they create vertical presence, adding structure and height. Group them in threes or place one as a focal point by a fence, and suddenly, the yard feels balanced and alive. Upcycling is not only about saving waste from landfills. It's about teaching our eyes to see potential, to recognize that beauty and practicality can be reborn from what others might discard. And in this simple act of transformation, your backyard becomes more than just a space. It becomes a living gallery, nurtured by your own hands. Sometimes the most ordinary object can create extraordinary beauty. Take a simple plastic bottle, often tossed away without thought, and imagine it transformed into a fence that shimmers in the sunlight. Lined up in rows, painted in cheerful colors, or filled with water that catches the light, these bottles become more than just recycled trash. They become part of the garden story. Building a bottle fence is surprisingly easy. Wash the bottles thoroughly, remove the labels, and decide whether to keep them transparent or decorate them with paint. They can be set upright in the soil as a garden border, or hung between wooden posts to form a playful backyard fence. A few small holes at the bottom allow rainwater to drain if you choose to use them as mini planters. With patience and creativity, what once was waste turns into a living canvas. In a tiny yard, this kind of design brings both function and joy. The bottles help outline flower beds, guiding the eye through bright marigolds, climbing tomatoes, or even a row of herbs that perfume the air. When the afternoon sun falls, the fence glows softly, adding a gentle warmth to the garden space. DIY projects like this remind us that sustainability can be beautiful. Every reused bottle is one less piece of trash, and one more step toward a garden that feels personal, imaginative, and full of life. There is a certain quiet majesty in the form of an old root. Weathered by time, shaped by rain and soil, it carries within its curves the poetry of nature's hand. When placed in a garden, that once forgotten root transforms into a sculpture, an accent that brings both strength and softness to the space. Creating a root sculpture for your yard begins with seeing beauty where others might not. Look for roots with unusual twists or shapes, those that resemble flowing lines of art. Clean them gently, allowing the natural textures to remain visible. Sometimes a touch of varnish will highlight the wood grain, but often it is best to let the roots stay raw, letting moss or sunlight paint their own details over time. Imagine it standing at the center of a flower bed, roses blooming around its base, or resting quietly at the edge of a pathway, where ferns and grasses bend with the breeze. In tiny gardens, a single root sculpture can act as a focal point, drawing the eye and grounding the space in something raw and authentic. This kind of DIY project is less about tools and more about vision. It reminds us that beauty doesn't need to be manufactured. It can be lifted straight from the earth, given a stage, and allowed to speak. In the stillness of a backyard or patio, such a sculpture whispers stories of endurance, of growth, and of how even the simplest forms can hold the greatest grace. There's something timeless about gathering in the backyard, where the scent of food mingles with the laughter of friends. Imagine an old steel drum, once forgotten, now cut and shaped into the heart of those moments, a barbecue and table combined in one. Flames flicker gently beneath a metal grate, corn turns golden, and skewers sizzle while a wooden tabletop nearby holds the sauces and plates, ready for sharing. The beauty of this DIY project lies in its simplicity. A barrel, when halved and secured with a grate, becomes a functional grill. Add a sturdy plank across the top or attach a circular wooden surface around the rim, and suddenly it doubles as a serving table. It doesn't just save space, it transforms your tiny patio into a place that feels full of life. Place it near a garden bed filled with fresh herbs, rosemary, basil, or mint, and let their fragrance mix with the aroma of the food. Even in a small yard, this design creates a natural flow, where cooking, serving, and conversation all happen in one place. It's rustic yet practical, and it invites everyone to gather closer. Projects like this remind us that outdoor living doesn't need extravagance. With creativity, Even a discarded drum can become a centerpiece, turning a modest backyard into a stage for warmth, flavor, and connection. There is a kind of magic in a swing. It carries us back to childhood, to moments of weightless joy, where the air feels lighter and time slows down. Now imagine creating that magic not from store-bought materials, but from the graceful curve of a tree root, polished, sturdy, and given new life as a swing seat. The process is as gentle as it is creative. Find a strong root with a natural curve or thickness that feels solid under your weight. Sand it smooth, so it is comfortable to sit on, and treat it with oil or varnish to protect it from weather. Then, tie it securely with durable ropes to a sturdy branch or beam. In just a little time, something once buried in the soil becomes a piece of joy suspended in the air. Place the swing in a shady corner of your backyard, where grass grows soft beneath and flowers frame the view. Or near a small vegetable garden, so while children play, you can breathe in the scent of herbs and ripe tomatoes swaying in the breeze. Even in the smallest yards, a swing seat creates a sanctuary, an escape, a reminder that happiness often comes from the simplest of things. DIY is not only about crafting objects, but about crafting memories. With a root swing, you don't just recycle wood. You invite laughter, calm, and the quiet rhythm of life back into your garden. Borders in a garden are like frames around a painting. They guide the eye, shape the space, and add harmony to the colors within. And what better way to create them than with items others might throw away? Old bottles and discarded drums, once lifeless, can be reborn as vibrant garden edging, giving structure and beauty to even the smallest backyard. The idea is simple, yet deeply creative. Bottles can be sunk upside down into the soil, their colors reflecting the sunlight like small jewels along the path. Drums, when cut into short sections and painted, stand firmly as miniature planters or bold accents between the bottles. Together, they form a rhythm of shapes and colors, holding back soil while highlighting the flowers or vegetables they protect. Try mixing pastel-painted bottles with bright drum pieces around a bed of marigolds, or use transparent glass bottles to catch the glow of the afternoon sun beside leafy greens. With just a little effort, your edging becomes more than functional. It becomes part of the art of your garden. DIY edging like this is not only cost-friendly, it also carries a story of transformation. Every step along the path reminds you that beauty often lies in what we choose to renew. And in that renewal, your garden becomes more than a space to plant. It becomes a reflection of creativity, sustainability, and quiet joy. There is something enchanting about creating a space where conversations linger a little longer and evenings feel warmer. A mini patio bar, built not from polished store-bought furniture, but from roots and old drums, carries a charm that no catalog could ever offer. It feels alive, rustic, and deeply personal. The design begins with vision. A thick root, shaped by nature's patience, can be polished and fitted with a wooden plank, transforming into a sturdy bar stand. Around it, drums once used for storage are cut, painted, and cushioned to become comfortable stools. Place them under soft lights or near a corner of flowering herbs, and the space becomes more than a place to sit. It becomes a destination within your backyard. What makes this project special is its dual nature. On one hand, it is practical. a bar counter where drinks, snacks, or even fresh-picked garden herbs can rest. On the other, it is symbolic, a reminder that beauty can rise from what was once discarded. A splash of paint on the drums, a small vase of flowers on the bar top, and suddenly the setting feels festive, even in the quietest of nights. DIY like this is less about saving money and more about creating memory. Every time you sit at that bar, with a glass in hand and the evening breeze brushing your shoulders, you are reminded that you built this sanctuary yourself, from roots and barrels that carried their own histories. And in that act, your backyard becomes not just a garden, but a story you get to live in. Corner of a patio can feel transformed when we give attention to the smallest details. A trash can, often hidden away or overlooked, can become part of the beauty instead of something to disguise. With a little imagination, an old drum or plastic container can be reborn, not only as a practical bin, but as a piece of design that blends gracefully into your garden. The process is easier than you might think. Begin with a sturdy drum, clean it well, and smooth its surface. Paint it in tones that echo your garden's colors, earthy browns, crisp whites, or even cheerful patterns to brighten the space. Add a wooden lid or attach slats around the outside, and suddenly it looks less like waste and more like furniture with character. Place this upgraded bin beside a flower bed or near a patio bench, where it stands quietly yet purposefully. Surround it with herbs like rosemary and mint, so that even its presence feels fresh. In small spaces, these thoughtful touches matter. They keep the garden organized while adding charm that makes the area feel intentional and cared for. DIY like this teaches us that no detail is too small. When we elevate the ordinary, we turn daily routines into moments of beauty. Even a trash can, once forgotten, can remind us that design and function belong together, and that every corner of our backyard deserves to feel loved. There is a quiet elegance in blending the strength of roots with the softness of flowers. A flowering root fence border feels as though nature itself has drawn the lines of your garden, weaving together the old and the new, the sturdy and the delicate. It does more than divide spaces. It creates harmony, a frame where colors and textures live side by side. To create this, begin with roots that are thick enough to form a natural fence. Arrange them gently along the garden's edge, letting their curves follow the land. Between these lines of wood, tuck in soil where small flowering plants can thrive. Marigolds, tulips, or daisies will flourish here, their blossoms bright against the rough, earthy texture of the roots. For climbing varieties, allow vines to twist through the gaps, softening the edges with a cascade of blooms. In tiny yards, this border does more than organize space. It adds depth, turning a simple flower bed into a scene that feels alive and layered. The roots whisper of endurance, while the blossoms sing of renewal. And when placed beside a vegetable bed, the border creates balance between beauty and function. Flowers bringing joy, roots bringing structure. This is the gift of DIY gardening. The ability to shape not just the land, but the feeling it carries. A flowering root fence reminds us that even the strongest boundaries can be softened by beauty, and that every garden, no matter how small, can hold a piece of poetry. Sometimes the walls of a garden are as important as the soil beneath it. They can be blank canvases waiting for color, waiting for life. And with a few old drums, cut and reshaped, those empty spaces can blossom into vertical gardens that make even the tiniest patio feel abundant. The idea is simple, yet transformative. By slicing a drum in half and securing it to a fence or wall, you create planters large enough to hold herbs, flowers, or cascading vines. Paint them in bold colors to brighten a dull corner, or leave them rustic for a natural charm. Drill drainage holes at the bottom, fill them with soil, and let the plants spill over the edges. Lavender flowing like purple waterfalls, or basil spreading green and fragrant. This kind of project is perfect for small spaces, where ground area is limited but walls are free to host life. Imagine a bamboo fence lined with drums overflowing with mint and rosemary, or a brick wall softened by sunflowers and petunias. In the evening light, the drums glow with character, turning a plain background into a living artwork. DIY like this reminds us that gardening is not just about planting in the ground, it's about finding opportunities everywhere. When we lift plants onto our walls, we bring nature closer to eye level, closer to heart. And in doing so, even a small patio becomes a place of abundance, beauty, and quiet joy. A pathway at night has its own quiet poetry. Each step feels safer, softer, when guided by gentle light. And when those lights rise not from store-bought poles, but from roots shaped by nature, the garden takes on a magic all its own. A root becomes a stand, a lantern rests on top, and suddenly the pathway is both illuminated and alive with character. To create this, begin by selecting roots that are sturdy and naturally upright. Clean them well, sanding if needed, but keep their unique curves intact. At the top, attach a small solar lantern or bulb, allowing the shape of the root to act as a natural stand. Place them at intervals along a stone or gravel path, where their warm glow will guide the way after sunset. What makes this idea so special is the way it balances function with artistry. The lights ensure safety, marking every step, while the roots bring rustic beauty, blending seamlessly into the landscape. Flowers or herbs growing along the edges reflect the glow, making even a tiny yard feel enchanted when evening falls. DIY projects like this remind us that light does not only chase away darkness, it can also highlight beauty. By reusing roots as lampstands, we honor the shapes carved by time and let them continue their story, not hidden underground, but shining gently in the heart of our gardens.